All right, so this is my compost canister. This is the thing that sits on the countertop where I put all the chopped scraps in, the things that can go directly into the worm compost. What it has is this carbon filter, which is brilliant because it keeps a lot of the stink in here, because if you leave it in here for a while, it becomes really nasty in there, but you can still feed it to the worms. They don't mind. You can put tea bags in there. You can put any kind of food scraps aside from onions and garlic. I don't really put coffee grounds in the worm compost bin because of the pH issue, but I guess some people do and have been okay with that. But again, I just kind of follow along with whatever I've read about what you can put in there. All right, so this is in my kitchen. You would never guess that that is filled with nasty rotting food. And then we're gonna come over and look at my stacked worm bin. So yes, these contain worms and lots of developing compost. And you would never guess, it doesn't stink. It is not gross. You open it up and see all the worms working away. That's a piece of scrap lettuce that was on its way out. I just went ahead and fed it to the worms. There's some butternut squash in there, banana peels, all kinds of stuff. And I use coconut coir as the bedding. You can use all kinds of stuff for the bedding, but that's what I use. And at the bottom is a little spigot where the worm leachate drips out. And this is the stuff that you can dilute and then feed to your house plants. Remember I said my starter plants are doing really well. I started these guys with some coconut coir mixed in with my worm compost brilliantly. It worked brilliantly, and everything's just growing. And of course in Colorado we can't just pop them in the ground right now because the lovely Mother Nature here likes to surprise us with late spring snowstorms. Yeah, it's awesome. So now we're gonna go downstairs, and yeah, you can see that our house is actually quite nice. So we're not living in the slums. We're not like, you know, making some kind of crazy, weird hoarding lifestyle here, but we are actually normal people. But we're composting our food scraps. So here's, and not to place any judgment on anyone, but I'm just telling you that yes, we are an average family and doing these extraordinarily fun things in our basement and kitchen. So you can see this is really black and it looks really beautiful. So, you know, when I'm getting ready to extract some of this compost, I will, for a week or two, I'll put the compost the scraps only on one side. And what happens is all the worms move to that side. And the alternative is to sift through and kind of just grab stuff that doesn't have worms in it and put it in to whatever you're using. But if you put the scraps on one side, the worms will congregate on that side because that's where the food is. So this here is in my basement, and I just love the little worms. They're so fun. It's in a giant bin, so you can actually make this, and it's really inexpensive compared to the one that I have in my kitchen. What we really need to do though is make sure there are drainage holes at the base of the front of it, and you want to make sure it's elevated. So it's got some kind of back elevation to help drain the leachate out. And the leachate is going into this big bucket. That's quite a bit of leachate. And that's actually that's 1 week's worth because you water it every week. And when you water it, you're basically straining that leachate, which is the liquid gold that feeds your plants. So yeah, you can see this, and it generally takes, I mean, depending on what you feed them, it takes a couple weeks for them to really eat stuff down. And you'll find too that sometimes plants are trying to grow inside the compost bin. So how does it sit down here? Well, what I do is I put a lid on top with holes for ventilation. And some people will put, you know, screen on the inside of these holes. I found that the screen is unnecessary at this time. It really doesn't make any difference. But what does make a big difference, especially when you're first getting your worms, is a light positioned above your compost bin. When you first add your worms, they'll want to squirm right out of there. If you have a light, which they don't like at all, because light means death to them, they'll stay in the compost bin. So here it is, further back. That's the system. Again, it does not stink. It's amazing that you can do this inside, and you can do this year round. You know, when you're in a multi-season area like Colorado, you know, composting can slow down in the winter, but with vermicomposting, it doesn't have to slow down. All right, well, that brings us to the end. And I'm gonna come right back up and just show you once more what's happening in the kitchen. And then we will, oh yeah, there's the eggshells. I bake those and I grind them down so that it can go in with the worms. The reason I do that is because they need grit, and that is a perfectly acceptable form of grit for them. So yeah, there we are. The compost system inside the house. And you can do this anywhere. You can do it in an apartment, you can do it in suburbia, you can do it in rural settings, you can do it in small or large houses, apartments, or you know, large houses. So anyway, sorry, I'm not even making sense at the end there, but thank you for joining me. I hope that you consider doing this in your own home and getting some really good starter plants as a result. All right, I will talk to you again soon. Bye.